Thanks to the ongoing pandemic, some forms of traditional activism and organizing have become significantly more difficult, but innovative minds are finding ways to deal with the current situation and opening up new opportunities to figure out how you can push the country in the right direction. And we have someone joining us right now to talk about one such effort. Gabe Tobias is the co-founder and national training director for the Movement School and also a senior advisor to the Justice Democrats. Gabe, welcome back to the Damage Report.
Hey, John. Great to be back here.
Glad to have you here. We've talked about the Movement School before. Now you have an online campus program. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So in this time of COVID-19, obviously, you can't really do anything in person. In a way, this is not a huge adjustment for us because we've been doing online trainings for the last year or so. We recognize going into this cycle, everything that's happening right now around campaign life, people trying to figure out how do we talk to voters, how do we organize our campaigns, how do we raise money, how do we talk about the big issues that are happening right now in our country. There's a need for campaigns at all levels, from statewide races, congressional races, down to local races, to really learn best practices, to glean some of that work that we had, particularly on the Bernie Sanders and even Elizabeth Warren campaigns, and take some of that knowledge, those best practices, and apply them to their work. So we've launched this large campus program with 6-week intensive courses for any progressive electoral organizers in the country. We've got around 500 actually so far registered for those courses. So yeah, excited to get all these started and take some of our best practices and put them to use in these couple months when campaigns desperately need to adapt to the new reality of this crisis moment in the country.
Yeah. Yeah, well, part of the new reality is that when my dog shakes, you can hear it on the mic now because he's here. So I'm glad that you've adapted as quickly as you have. I've been very worried over the past couple of months that a lot of new people running for office for the first time, it's already difficult for a number of different reasons, that this might make it even more difficult, an inability to do sort of some of the canvassing and things like that. What are, I mean, I know, you want people to sign up for the program there, they'll learn everything. What are some of the big ideas that you're hoping to spread to give both organizers, both those running and those trying to, work outside of direct electoral contests to make sure that they can still be effective?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, John. I think the really challenging thing from a progressive standpoint is we are used to the real energy and momentum being a person-to-person activity for our campaigns, right? We're used to the door knocking, people going out and knocking on doors, talking to voters, getting them mobilized. We're used to the big barnstorm, big, rally events. Think about the Bernie Sanders rallies of 2016 or 2020. Think of AOC rallies in similar ways, right? Get these moments where you get all these people in a room together, and we've depended on that as a source of our energy. We obviously have a lot of really enthusiastic people, volunteers and supporters of all types and different levels of campaigns. And right now, what they have to do is figure out how to take that energy, that people power that we've seen so effective in the past, and translate it to a moment where it's both needed more than ever. Right? We have this crisis moment in the country where these campaigns have to respond and talk about what their bigger vision is. Right? How are we imagining a Congress in the future, or governments at state or local levels that are responding to this crisis and doing it in ways that are far better than obviously what Trump has and even what some leadership in the Democratic Party has been putting forward. What does that big vision look like? That is mobilizing, but we have to find ways to translate some of that into the realities of the campaign world, where right now you have a lot of elections that are entirely vote by mail, right? So how do you go from an election where you expected people to all turn out on one day or at least a couple of days beforehand to having to go through an absentee ballot application process where you're going online, you're filling out forms, you're waiting for a ballot to come to you, you're filling out the ballot, sending it back. That's a lot more steps for someone to jump through. So a lot of the work is campaigns figuring out how to tap into the big picture vision of the current moment, and then translating that into the reality of turning out votes for their elections, whether it's primary or looking forward to November in the general election.
For some people who might have been either already involved or looking to get involved in organizing in this particular election, it seems like had the primary gone differently, a not insignificant share of that organizing would be around the presidential contest if Bernie Sanders had been the nominee. It seems, I mean, I could be wrong. It seems like there's going to be less of a focus on that with the way that the direction of the primary went. I don't know to what extent you know about the people who are hoping to learn from you what they specifically want to do with that training, but I'm curious, is it Is some of that energy now being routed to lower level contests, congressional runs, and local elections and things like that? Is it more issue specific advocacy? What does it look like the energy is flowing towards right now?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the things that seems like has been maybe a bit of a misconception in the progressive movement in the last month or 2 months since you had the sort of slow end of the Bernie Sanders campaign. This idea that was sort of taking the air out of the progressive movement. I think that really hasn't borne out. The people, the saying was always not me, us, right? Mm-hmm. And the us, I think, applied to a lot of this other work that's happening. So what we've seen is all these volunteers and staffers of Sanders' campaign going and shifting down to down ballot races, even for our so one of our courses where that's being run in the movement school campus is being led by 3 of the people who led Bernie Sanders' campaign, and that's Becca Rast, Young Jung Cho, and Hannah Furtak, amazing organizers, led his organizing behemoth, and they're taking that now and helping other campaigns adapt through some of the courses that we're running, and that to me has seemed like the big picture that we in movement school are trying to tap into, this idea of the progressive infrastructure that we are building around our world. And I had conversations where people harken back to the conservative movement in the 60s, right? You had Barry Goldwater in 1964, lost, got blown out. Could have been a moment where they say, oh, well, Goldwater lost, we're going to go away. But instead, obviously abhorrent people, abhorrent ideas, but they had a desire to buckle down and really build a movement from that moment. And I think in similar ways, the impact of that in the 60s and 70s and 80s was this massive shift in politics in the United States. Sort of conservative neoliberal ideas taking hold, and we want to do the same thing in the opposite direction now. And I think that this moment is one where we see the seedlings of that movement coming together across different organizations, across issue organizing and electoral organizing, as you said, and that's exciting. That's exciting to see that take hold. That it isn't just based on we need this one candidate to drive everything forward. We actually do have this broad-based infrastructure to move change forward, whether it's congressional races, local races, issue fights. I think that is there, and that the more we walk that path, the more we see how that strength lies within the broader movement.
And so for this particular effort, the online campus, are you mainly hoping to bring in people who are, engaged with politics and all that, but might not have done much organizing already? They're looking to get into it? Or is this seeking to take people who have some experience organizing and activism and sort of professionalize them? Who's the target demographic here?
Yeah, it's definitely more the latter for these courses. There's plenty of other things which are meant for early organizers and people who are just learning the craft. These ones here that we have are really meant for folks who are either on campaigns right now, so they have a role on a campaign at some level. They were maybe on a campaign earlier this cycle. Maybe they were Bernie Sanders staff or Warren staff earlier in the cycle, or people who work at grassroots organizations in different places that have some electoral work to their portfolio. They're involved in issue organizing or community organizing, and also involved in campaigns in one way or the other in this cycle. So it's meant for folks who definitely have some experience and are looking to skill up and adapt to the current moment.
Awesome. So definitely something that if you fit that demographic, it's something you should definitely be thinking about. And for other people who might be watching this video, I know that there's been a lot of reason, both just in a general sense to be a little bit depressed and a little bit down, but in a political sense possibly, and Gabe, you alluded to that. But it is good to know that there are organizations like the Movement School out there trying to assemble an army of people who are going to push things in the right direction, give us a little bit of hopes for the future. So Gabe, I really do appreciate that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Come join our army. Our army is great. We're building it. Yeah.
Thank you. Gabe Tobias of the Movement School, also senior advisor to the Justice Democrats. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, John. Great to be here.
For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/The Damage Report. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.